January 30th, 2021. Views and opinions about world and national events from the mind of a military veteran that has served and defended this nation and its citizens since 1978. Insight that has been molded by the commitment and sacrifices of the Americans that are defending and have defended our freedoms for the past 247 years. Unfiltered, unedited, and certainly not PC. We are those people. Let's stand up and stand firm. Welcome, everybody. This morning is a very special show. We have a very special guest on this morning. We have Mr. Bill Muckler, a United States Marine Corps veteran and an author of two books, 2020, A Clear Vision for America, and 2020, A Clear Vision for Our Future. We'll talk with Bill about his books and get a view from his military mind about our nation and the shape it's in and where he sees us going. Now, I'm going to dedicate almost the entire show to Bill and his two books. Bill, I'm real proud to have you here with us this morning, so we're looking forward to this.
Well, thank you very much, Terry, and I'm honored to be on the show, and it's really a great opportunity to be able to talk with you about America.
All right, sounds good. Once we get on with, after the commercial break, we'll get with Bill. And in the very last segment, we'll go in depth and share our opinions on news from the past week and our viewers' comments. And then we'll have my final thoughts from my military mind. So you hang with us. Right after the break, we'll go ahead and get started with Mr. Bill Muckler and our views from a military mind.
Son for 18 months.
When he got injured, I knew I had to be strong.
I just remember rushing into his room and giving him a big hug and letting him know I was there.
These veterans and families are just a few of the heroes we serve at Homes for Our Troops. We build specially adapted custom homes with features like wheelchair access and automatic door openers that allow them to
All right. Well, that was interesting. So we won't play that ad again, will we? That was crazy. All right. And again, I'd like to introduce everybody to Mr. Bill Muckler. Bill, welcome to the show. And like I said, you're a United States Marine Corps veteran and an author of two books. Tell us a little bit about your Marine Corps service.
Well, I had the opportunity to go to college and be a college boy. Actually, I graduated from high school in May of '53, and all of us thought in my class, we thought we were going to Korea because that was our whole high school career was spent while we were at war with Korea. So I graduated, and that's when they started the peace. They declared the ceasefire and started the peace talks. And so my dad, who had only had the opportunity to go to third grade because his father had died when he was 9 years old, said, "You're going to college." So I went to college. And before I graduated, I went to, I was called in by the draft board. We have to do that then. They called the pre-induction physical. And of course, I passed. That wasn't any problem. And I was able to get a deferment. And when I graduated, I was accepted into the Marine Corps Officers Candidate course, which was really a great honor. And that started my military career. And back on June the 7th of 1958, I raised my right hand and swore an oath to defend and support the Constitution, the United States of America. And we all took, as veterans, we took that oath, and we know that. And the reason I'm going through all this is I want everybody to know that I, like all of you that are watching this show, we took that oath and we still live that oath. We still believe in that. And we serve every day. We never stop serving. We continue to serve. So how does that bring me to a point where you would actually want to have me on this show? And what happened was, as I was working in a career as a work management process consultant, I did a lot of traveling, and I would be working with a group of people, and and we would talk about all sorts of things. We'd talk about religion, we'd talk about politics, music, sports, whatever topic came up. And I guess I was the one who always had the ideas on the government, and everybody was amazed that I had no respect for the political establishment or the deep bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., and that I wanted to see if we couldn't solve problems to get rid of them, so to say. So I'm kind of the anti-politician. I don't like any of them, because I kind of feel like they're all pretty much the same. Ones just want to just take us to dependence quicker than the other ones do. Exactly. So people would say, hey, why don't you write that stuff down, what you're talking about? So eventually I thought, okay, I got to write it down. So that's how I ended up writing a book. And what I did is I took all the issues that the political establishment has imposed upon us, and I listed them out, and I came out with about 35. And I thought, well, this is way too much, So I started paring it down. I said, okay, which is the worst ones, and which are the ones that are not that big of a problem to us immediately. And I got down to 20, hence the name of the book, 2020, A Clear Vision for Our Future. And so I took on, subjects like the VA and immigration and education, and I talk about the military and military service. And one of the things I brought up was, all of us that served in the military, no matter what rank we were, whether we were a 4-star or just a new recruit coming in, we're all equally important, because we all have an important role to play. If we didn't, they wouldn't need us, and we wouldn't be there. So I wanted to make sure everybody understood that where I was coming from was, we're all equally important. We just have different roles to play. We all have the same responsibilities. We just, perform them in a little bit different capacity. Then I always would hear guys in the Navy would say, "Oh, you Marines, you're just a department of the Navy, And then we get into all those types of things, and
calling you the men's department.
And so I said, no. All services are equally important. We just have different missions. So, once we kind of get through all that and kind of clear out the clutter that, hey, it doesn't make any difference what branch we're in or what rank we are or however long we served, we're all equally important. We just serve different roles, or maybe we're on different missions or whatever. But, so in looking at that way, I thought, okay, how do we apply this to our everyday lives? And so, for example, like I'll just use education for an example. When I wrote a chapter on education, I looked at the background and the history of education in America, and then I did a statistical analysis on it. And you might think, oh, that's pretty deep, I don't want to get involved in that. But I had to do that because I had to do a cost-benefit analysis to determine is how we're educating our youth the best way to do it. And so what I found out was back in 1979, we did not have a Department of Education. And a lot of people just, if you were born, say, after 1970, you have no idea what the country was all about back then. So everybody thought, well, we've had a Department of Education forever. Well, no, we didn't. So in 1979, the United States, our country, our students ranked #1 in all test scores. And we're talking about international, around the world. Math, science, reading, everything. We were #1 without a Department of Education. So then under Carter, we decided, okay, we're going to have a Department of Education, but it's just going to be small. It'll just be something to help facilitate the educational process in America. and it'll have about 3,000 to 4,000 employees and maybe about a $4 or $5 billion budget. Now here we are. We've got about an $80 billion budget with a 60,000 person Department of Education, and we rank 30th in the world in our test scores. So my conclusion was, what good has the Department of Education done for us? So why do we have it? Why are we spending all this money on education? And then I thought, how do I find out how much money we are spending on education? What I found out is, and my statistics are maybe lagging a little bit, but we're spending well in excess of $600 billion a year on education, of which only about half of that, a little over 300 billion, is actually goes to in-class instruction. So where's all the rest of that money going? And why are we 30th in the nation, or why are we 30th in the world in scores? So that led me to my conclusion of how we should educate our young people, our students. So anyway, if you read the book, you might say to me, well, I don't know where you're going with that because I'm just giving you a little capsule. But if you read the whole chapter, which takes about 20 minutes, about 10 pages, very light reading, everything's well documented, you'll see, hey, this is really the way we need to go. Now, I also did that for the VA, and I did that for the UN. And my conclusion on the UN was get the United States out of the UN and get the UN out of the United States.
Yeah, well, I think we've been saying that.
Everybody says, yeah, I'm all for that. But I really got into why we really need to do that, and the harm that the UN is really causing the United States and how much money we're wasting on it. We're just pouring money into an organization that's really worthless. So then I got, and looked at the military, and one of the things that I came up with is we need to give everybody on active duty a 20% raise in salary and compensation and in benefits. And well, how can we do that? Well, I have a tax plan to eliminate the IRS and the income tax. And this is all well documented. It's a way to do it. It will bring in more revenue than we ever had before. And we can afford to take care of our military. And then for our veterans, and this gets back to whether you serve 2 or 3 years or 20 or 30 years, you should get lifetime medical benefits, and with no questions asked. And the problems we're having with the VA are just horrendous. And why is it that, when we're on active duty, when I was on active duty, if somebody had a problem, it was taken care of. I had one of my young Marines suffered a very tragic accident, was completely paralyzed. We got him on a helicopter, and I was stationed in Hawaii at the time, and this was on one of the outer islands. We got him to Tripler Army Hospital and got him in there and got him the best care you can imagine. We didn't have to wait, to show ID cards or, do paperwork or anything. We just got him in there and got him taken care of. Why can't we do that today? Why do we have all these regulations? So that's part of my book is what are all the things that are happening to us that this whole permanent bureaucracy has imposed on us with all these needless regulations, and how can we get rid of them, and how can we operate without them? And we can operate very well without them, just like we used to. So that's pretty much what my book is about. And
all right, Bill. Well, I brought up your first book here, which is
yeah, that's actually the second one. The first one is the one that's laying down open, and the second one is the one you see the cover on.
All right, well, here we go. We got that one to put up there. There you go. This one is called 2020, a clear vision for America. What in this book? What's the specifics on it? What are we going to get from this particular book? And then we'll get to the next one after the break.
Okay, what you're going to get on this, because everything that I researched, and I got tens of thousands of hours of research on this, is all from the government web pages. back in 1913, three things happened that really changed the course of America. One of them was we created the Federal Reserve, and that was something that they took the currency, the ability to regulate currency from our Congress and gave it to an outside organization. Another one was we created the income tax, which was only supposed to be 1%, and we know what happened with that. And then we also took away the right of the states to elect, or not elect, but actually appoint their representatives in Washington, D.C. by the 17th Amendment, which said that all senators will now be elected by popular vote. So what happened was, when it used to be we the people were on top, and the states reported to us, and the federal government reported to the states were in control. Now the federal government is control of everything. They treat the states like regional departments. And then on the bottom is we the people who really have no say whatsoever. We're not represented at all in our government. And by reading this book, you'll understand exactly how all this happened and what we need to do about to resolve the issues.
Outstanding. All right. Got the basis of that, the first book here. Give us just a minute. We got to go into a real quick break here, and me and Bill will be right back, and we'll start talking about 2020, a clear vision for our future. So hang tight with us for just a second, and we'll be right back.
VFW was founded. Their mission was really to look out for the veterans community, to make sure that our nation upholds its promise to really care for the service member, the veteran, and his or her family. There are several ways that the VFW fights for veterans today. The top services include disability claims assistance, advocacy on Capitol Hill and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. We also offer scholarship opportunities, and then also volunteerism. For me personally, when I came back from Iraq, my life experience was drastically different from those around me, and the veterans of foreign wars really spoke to me. The reason I would encourage veterans who have served overseas today to join the VFW is because this is your organization. The VFW is for veterans. Every generation, a new generation of leaders steps up in the veterans of foreign wars and fights for the veterans community.
The Veterans of Foreign Wars. No one does more for veterans.
This. So like I said, in this next segment, we'll talk about Bill's second book here, 2020, A Clear Vision for the Future. So Bill, I'm assuming that, and I'll let everybody know out there, I haven't had a chance to read the books yet. I just found them from Bill earlier. I really made a mistake by trying to order them from Amazon. They're not carried on there. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, we can go to your website to order the books. And get them sent.
Yes, that's correct. And I personally receive the orders. I sign every one of my books, and I print out the labels myself, and I take them to the post office and make sure they're mailed out that very same day that I receive the orders. So I'm personally invested in this. In my new book, people asked me, they said, well, can you write and explain to us what your thinking was behind the book and your first book, and tell us a little bit more about it? So what I did is I decided to write another book, and it's 20 chapters, but I wrote it in 3 parts. And in the 3 parts that I wrote it, the first part is restoring our Constitution. I have the entire Constitution and the history of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights in there, but I do it in a way that's never been written before. I write it so it's very brief and it's very understandable, and you understand exactly what it's all about. For example, I have a chapter called The Fabulous First, and that's about the First Amendment and why it's so important. And then the next chapter is called The Sacred Second, why the Second Amendment is the key to all the other amendments, because without the Second Amendment, we're going to lose the first one. But in the meantime, what I'd like to do is quickly read a couple of things from the book so you get a little bit of an idea where I'm coming from. The dedication of my book is This book is humbly dedicated to the 220 courageous Marines from the 1st Battalion, 8th Regiment, the 18 sailors and 3 soldiers who, while on duty to protect us, were taken on 23 October 1983 in Beirut, Lebanon. May Colonel Timothy J. Garrity, USMC retired, and his 1,800 brave peacekeepers always be remembered. I want to make sure we remember all of our fallen heroes. And so I wanted to make sure we didn't forget about the ones in Beirut. We shouldn't remember the ones from the Cole. We shouldn't remember any of them from any of the battles or whatever happened, like Pearl Harbor. The next thing I want to do is I want to read something, and this is something that you all may think you've heard this before, but I doubt if you really have. And I hope maybe some of you have read this. And in the book, in the introduction, I say, quote, that all men are by nature equally free and independent and have certain inherent rights of which, when they enter into a state of society, they cannot, by any compact, deprive or divest their posterity, namely the enjoyment of life and liberty and the means of acquiring and possessing property and pursuing and obtaining happiness and safety. Now, does that sound kind of familiar to people? But no one's really read this before, because this was the Declaration of Independence that was written on June the 12th of 1776 by George Mason, and the Commonwealth of Virginia Declaration of Independence, of which a young 33-year-old attorney by the name of Tom Jefferson happened to be in that group. And he kind of did this, and he did a copy and paste job. So on July the 4th, we had our own Declaration of Independence that read almost exactly like this, except there was one thing that they left out, and I guess they had some disagreements and some arguments, and they were trying to get everything done. They left out the part where it says the means of acquiring and possessing property. And this is what my book is about, in a sense, is ownership, because the United States, in what we have here in the United States that they don't have in the other 195 countries on the planet, is we have the right to own property. But we have the right to own a lot more things, and we don't think about that so much, because we think, okay, I own my house. But you don't really own your house. The bank owns your house, more than likely, because the bank, if you miss about 2 or 3 payments, the bank is going to come and get it. And you say, well, I own my car. Well, try going without making payments for 2 or 3 months, and the repro guy is going to come and get your car. So do you really own that? And everything else we own is probably on credit cards. So this is what's happened to us in America. We've kind of become slaves of all this. But the important thing is we actually own our rights. So the right for free speech and the right to own and possess firearms, those are all things that we own. And right now, what I'm afraid of, and why I wrote this book, is that the government is trying to take those rights away from us. They're trying to say, no, you don't own those rights anymore. We own those rights, and we're the ones who are going to take them away from us. And I'm saying, no, you can't, because our Creator endowed those rights on us, and He endowed us with ownership. Now, what else do we really own? You know what we really own? We own our time, our toil, and our talents. In other words, we own the time that we spend. We own the toil of what we work to acquire possessions, property, and we own our talent and our skills. So those are the things we own, and we own free will. And so let's get back to declaring the independence. We didn't declare dependence. Our founding fathers declared independence. But right now, we're completely dependent on the government, on the banks, and everybody else. And we've got to take ourselves away from that and remove ourselves from that. And right now, I think there's a movement in this country that is starting to understand that, hey, we really own our rights, and we want to protect our rights, and we want to own our free will, because that's what God gave us. He gave us our ability to think. And the government, and now with our permanent bureaucracy, which is known as the deep state, which is heading towards a new world order, which I also write about in my book, is trying to take all this away from us, so we will not be able to own anything anymore. It will end up being just wards of the state. In other words, serfs, and go right back to where we were in 1976 before we declared independence.
Yep, and I see more and more every day too, where we have socialist ideas, things we fought for or fought against, excuse me, fought against in World War I, World War II, in Korea, Vietnam, stopping the communist and socialist spread. And you see that just inundating our country. It's absolutely crazy. And from what I'm gathering on your book, you address some of that. Because we lose our freedoms, we just give them up. We roll over and lay over onto the government, and that's what I'm seeing that your book is quite a bit about.
Yeah, in other words, then we gave up ownership of our time, our toil, and our talent. So we actually started out in this country with socialism back in 1620, when the Puritans arrived on the Mayflower in Plymouth Rock. And I explain all that, and I use that as an example of why capitalism is important, and why the free market system is so important, because the free market system is really gives us the ability to be creative and use our talent and our time and our toil to own our property, and not only our property, but our intellectual property. So what happened back in 1620 is they had a system of socialism whereby everybody grew crops and made products or whatever, goods, and it all went in the warehouses, and the owner of the system they took their part, and they gave the rest of it to the settlers that came over. Well, after about 3 years, they were just about destitute and in bad straits. And they said, no, we want to own our own property. And so once they decided that they could have their own property, and they could farm their own land, and they could make their own products, that was the start of capitalism. And that's when they really became successful. It wouldn't have been for that, they'd have died off, and we wouldn't have had that settlement there.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about them with the Puritans having that kind of a system, and that was long before Lenin and Marx and Mao Zedong and several of those that claimed it as their own. Long before
I have the history going back to 1847 when Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto. I have that in the book, and I explain why how they wrote it and why it's so dangerous to us as Americans in a free society.
Wow, it's crazy how far we've come, and here we're going to turn around, and it looks like we're trying to roll right back into it again and destroy what our forefathers and our descendants have all worked so hard for.
Yes, and we're becoming more and more dependent on the government every day, and we're going through a whole entire cycle where we went from bondage to dependence to finally freedom and so forth. And then over a period of several hundred years, we're going right back into dependence. And from dependence, we'll go back into bondage, which is what we had with King George III back in when we declared independence.
Right. So, Bill, just to pick your mind, what do you think as the American people? You know, everything rests in our hands in all reality and legally by the Constitution and all of our ministers of it rests in our hands. What do you tell the American people or someone who talks to you? What do you tell them they need to do to try to get this corrected?
Well, first of all, knowledge is power. So they really need to understand what the history is and what the background of where we came from and how we got all this, because we can't get it back until we know exactly what we what we had and what we lost. So that's the first step. And then we have to start electing leaders that are really leaders and representing us, because right now, I don't think that the majority of the Congress is really representing us. I think they're representing the interest of the of their how would you say,
special interests and your PAC
who
and all that.
represent them, the military industrial complex, the banking industrial complex, the medical industrial complex, which is all these various entities are really ruling the country. The media, we know now, like, we're independent. We can talk, Terry. You and I can talk, and we can have people listen to us. But the rest of the media, what I call the shady stream media, because they're really pretty shady characters, they end up, there's about 5 or 6 companies that control the entire media of the United States, of the world, and that's how we get our news. And do we really get the news, or are we getting something that they want us to hear?
We're just getting what they want us to hear, and it addresses their agenda. Now, for my normal shows and for when I'm on Moving It Right with Rich Ashton out of Florida on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we look at some of the mainstream media items that are out there just because we want to see what the different viewpoints are, whether they're from CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, or whatever, or Fox News. And then we also look at OAN, One American News Network, and Newsmax, and of course Newsweek. And we try to put all this stuff together and make a conglomeration, try to figure out what's the truth. But most of the time, they're just feeding us their agenda because they have some kind of monetary interest in what's going on, and they want to control the narrative. They're supportive of the left side of the world right now. So, yeah, that when it comes to independents like me and you and some of my other friends and some of the larger news agencies, we're fighting an uphill battle.
That's for sure. Let's talk about back in 1773, the Boston Tea Party, 1775, the battles of Lexington and Bunker Hill. There was a movement started then. And really, that's what it was. It was a movement by the about 15 to 20% of the colonists to become free and independent. And I think that we're starting to see that movement come back today. But the socialists, the leftists, as I call them, the regressives in my book, I refer to them, they're not progressive, they're regressive, are taking over the country. We need to take it back from them until we really understand what they've taken from us and what we're losing and what we really have to have. We're not going to really fight that hard for it. We're not going to get everybody to fight for it the way we need them to. It's just going to be a few of us starting, like you, Terry, getting us on the right track of understanding what it's all about, with a view from the military mind of those of us who served, that took the oath, that still believe in the oath. See, the majority of the people, 98% of the people in the country never took an oath to the Constitution.
Yeah, the current standing is about 1.3% of the country even serves in any kind of military capacity, or in what I would call a first responder capacity, with law enforcement, fire, EMS, your military, and of course your Coast Guard. I count as military too. I never forget my Coastie brothers and sisters out there. So yeah, it's a very small percentage that actually defend and protect those rights that are out there in our country, and defend and protect our own homes from perpetrators who want to do us harm, whether they be foreign or domestic.
So, I guess to further take that on, then I wrote the books not to make me money, because let me tell you, this is costing me a fortune. Because here's another thing: I had to self-publish my books because no publishers would publish my books. You know what they told me? And I'm the king of rejection. You'd be surprised how many rejections I got. Your content is not competitive. My content is not of interest to the readers, their readers. I'm a new author, so I don't have any standing. I'm a new author. I've never been published before, so we don't publish anybody that has never published a book before. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, how did people get started? How did Hemingway get started? You know, and so forth. Somebody had to get started. You know, so it's all excuses because the publishers all want to control the narrative as well, and they're all part of this whole cabal, this news industrial complex that's trying to control us and tell us this is how you must think. And I want people to think more like the way I'm thinking, which I think is more in the mainstream of the military mind and those of us who actually put ourselves on the line.
Yeah, exactly. So, Bill, give me right real quick. What is the web address for your book so we can get that out there and people can help you out and buy that book?
Okay. And when it's 2020americabook.com. So if you just go and Google 2020americabook.com, you can do it in lowercase or uppercase or whatever. It doesn't make any difference. And that'll take you to my webpage. And I've had some volunteers, are all veterans, including my son, who's a veteran, put this webpage together for me. And they have my bio on there. They have something about the books, and they have on there how to order. And ordering my books on there is exactly the same way as if you ordered something from Amazon or if you ordered it from any other web page. It's just as safe and just as secure and just as easy to do it. I get the orders directly to me, and I go ahead and I sign every one of my books that goes out. I make sure they all get signed, and they're all mailed by me personally. And you don't get that from anybody else. The publishers are only interested in how much money they can make per unit sold. You know, so if they can make $2 a book, then they'll probably try and they'll take it on and publish it, but they won't publish anything. In other words, they're not interested in content. And that's what we have to understand. All they're interested in is what the bottom line unit cost price is.
Yeah. Well, Bill, I put right at the end of our crawler down that's going across the bottom of the screen there. At the end of it is the web address for Bill's book. So that is www.2020americasbook.com. Go on there, buy the book, support Bill and what he's doing, support the information dissemination that we want. Bill, if you give us a minute here, we're going to take us a quick break. We'll get into our last segment, which is our closing, and then my military thoughts, which I'll help you with. Well, that's a heck of a thing. My host tag comes up on your picture. I did not include that. But anyway, everybody just hang tight with us. Again, Bill Muckler's two books, 2020, A Clear Vision for America, and 2020, A Clear Vision for Our Future, available at 2020americasbook.com. Hang tight with us. We're going to go into a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back.
What do you see in a parade? You see children with their flags, families clapping and laughing. What do you see when he walks by? Do you see his struggle, his path, his fight? Do you see him? When he walks alone. When he stands by himself. But he stands knowing the force of the VFW, America's largest organization of combat veterans, has his back. We are the VFW, and no one does more for veterans.
All right, we're back. Bill will be joining us here just a second. There he is. There's Bill. All right. And Bill, I'm gonna go over and take a look at something. What we're gonna do in this closing here is we're gonna take a look at a story that gets to us individually. Bill, if you can think of one that saw a news point that really got to you this week, we'll start discussing it. Right now, I'll go with one that's bothered me this week intensely is the number of presidential executive orders that our current president, and I'll just call him Joe Biden, has done. Over 25 executive orders already this week, less than 10 days. He has just about stripped what President Trump has done. He has now devastated our job market by shutting down things like the XL pipeline. He just obviously has no clue whatsoever the number of jobs that he is decimating out there. He has stopped construction on the wall down on the southern border, which we need not only for our protection, but those thousands of jobs that are down there also. So essentially, this man is destroying our country from the inside out by his caveats, his fiats that he thinks going to unite the country. And for the longest time, I used to tell people, and I still do tell them, educate yourself, understand what in the world is going on. And I tell them, don't rise up in arms. That's not what we're about. We're a peaceful people where we can protest peacefully. We don't have to go into violence. But Bill, I'm afraid that we're headed towards that end game of watching this country come to a violent reaction to what this idiot's doing up there. What's your words?
You're exactly right on this. And this all gets down back to this new world order, which is really the ultimate goal, and it'll be where the political elite have complete control over us. So what they're trying to do is take things away from us on a gradual basis. So they're starting with, they talk about the Green New Deal. They say, well, we're going to cause complete destruction of the planet in the next 10 or 12 years. Well, that's simply not true. Back in 1970, when I had a small typography company, I was actually doing a newsletter for a guy that was at Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, by the name of Barry Commoner. Dr. Commoner was the founder of this whole new environmental movement. And I read this newsletter as we produced the typography on it, and I thought, this is crazy, what this guy's doing. But what he was talking about then was, he said, there's an imminent danger of an ice age that's going to destroy the planet by 1975. This is back in 1970, 69, 70. Well, the ice age never happened. So then they said, no, global warming is going to destroy the country. So then we're going to have global warming destroy the country. And then when that didn't happen, now they're saying it's man-made climate change. But the whole thing is a hoax. It's all bizarre because none of it's happening. I'm old enough. I'm 85 years old. I was born in 1935. I remember in the early 50s, the late 40s and 50s, that the cities in America, have the smog, and our water wasn't as clean as it could be. And I remember taking a trip to Pittsburgh, and the air was just completely gray. It's not like that anymore. You go around the United States, and we've got clean water, we've got safe drinking water, we've got clean air. We don't have that anymore. So why are they trying to get us to think that we have to shut down our oil industry, for example, our fossil fuels, which, by the way, I've worked in a lot of the heavy industries. I've probably worked in more than 30 different coal-fired plants. None of them are producing any the great degree of carbons or anything like that. They've all got scrubbers on. They spent billions of dollars installing air scrubbers that clean up the air. So this whole thing is just a complete myth. And I've worked at U.S. Steel and other steel companies, and they're cleaning up everything. They've been doing this ever since the 70s and 80s. They've been doing this. They're not emitting any toxins into the air. If they were, we'd have people dropping dead on the streets. They're not. We're breathing clean air and we're drinking good water. So the whole thing is a hoax, but it's a religion for them, because if they can get us to believe in that, then we won't believe in our country, and we won't believe in our God. We'll believe in the government.
Right. I hear you. And I'm like you. When I first come out of the active duty in the military back in the early 80s, I went to work at U.S. Steel and took my apprenticeship out there. And back then, I mean, we started getting the scrubbers in to get some of these VOCs down, or volatile organic chemicals, as they call them. But we started having cleaner and cleaner air. You didn't see the emissions coming out of the steel mills like when my father worked there all through the 60s. You didn't have the big plumes coming out then. In my time, there were steam and things like that, byproducts of cleaning up all the emissions. So yeah, I'm like you. I never have believed in the climate change BS. Even when I was in college, we talked about climate change and how much it's actually changing, and it's like 0.001 degree over the course of a 2 to 5 year period. So it's not an immense change. So it's nothing more than a money making issue for the left, for them to try to keep things. They want to shut down all of our fossil fuels. That they're bowing and kowtowing to the environmental group, the extreme environmental groups, and build all these green things, the Green New Deal, AOC's Green New Deal. So now they're kowtowing to the socialist side of the Democratic Party, or to the left. And speaking about AOC, this woman has lost her ever-loving mind. I think she needs to really go back to being a bartender, because the BS stories work great with drunks. When you tell me that Ted Cruz has sent you death threats or threatened your life, I think you've been drinking a little bit too much of the Kool-Aid, and you need to go back to be a bartender. Okay, we can understand why you make stupid comments like this. And Ted Cruz lately has been in agreement on a lot of things with AOC. She's had a sudden epiphany of common knowledge that people will agree with her on. But hold your breath, it won't last long. Which it didn't when she comes up with Ted Cruz threatening to kill her. It's absolutely crazy. I really don't know what to do with this. I try to educate people as best I can. I don't advocate violence, but like I said, it looks like we're going to that end. So, Bill, what news story this week has really gotten under your skin or bothered you?
One of the things, I guess, I'm not sure if it was the end of last week or this week, but when the Simon & Schuster canceled out Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri's book contract, and to think that you can have a contract and then a company can cancel you out, and that's this whole new thing about the cancel culture that is really bothering me a lot. They can take away the president's ability to be on Twitter. They've taken it away from a lot of the politicians, senators, and so forth. But they've also actually closed down Parler. And how can they shut somebody down? And they're all in this together. They're working together on this. Google and Amazon and Twitter and Facebook, Zuckerberg, all of them. They're all in this together because they're colluding on this, because they're canceling everybody out all at the same time. So this gets back to, I want us to own our rights, and they're trying to cancel our rights away from us, cancel our ownership away from us. And so we don't even have the right to be on social media anymore.
Yeah. And I'm really surprised I haven't been shut down as a conservative talk show and news show. I really am surprised. Of course, I'm not as prominent as a lot of them are, but I see it as, Zuckerberg and all those with Facebook and Google and Amazon and all that, they've just gotten away with anything they want to, and they're driving their socialist agenda, and everybody's afraid to break up the monopoly that they have. I mean, look back at Ma Bell back in the day. they busted it all to pieces because it controlled everything under the sun. And I think it needs to be done here, but we don't have politicians with the cojones to do that.
And Terry, I don't know if it's that as much as it is. Most of the politicians are getting their campaign contributions from these very same tech companies that are ruling those social media. So if a politician is getting, say, several $1 million from Facebook, they're not going to do anything to get rid of our justice. This regulation was at 230 that we keep hearing about, that gives them this right that says they're a platform, not a publisher or a media company. So we've got to get the money out of that too. And that's another thing I write about, is how the lobbyists are just ruling the country and actually ruining the country, because they're buying the politicians. So what happens when a politician goes to Washington, D.C.? They don't represent us anymore. They represent the people who donate the money to them.
Exactly. And like you said, Section 230 protects them from any kind of repercussions for violation of the First Amendment. So I think that I agree with Trump on that one. That should have been revoked. I don't agree with the methodology he was using. He was holding it, almost trying to hold our men and women in uniforms pay and under the NDAA. But it does need to be readdressed, and that 230 needs to be revoked, where it protects these private companies, because they do as they please. They do of their own will. And we have become so dependent on social media and all these little apps and all this mess here. I mean, I can remember growing up as a kid, if I had a phone, it was attached to a wall on a cord, and I didn't go far with it. And I know you remember those days well, Bill.
Listen, I had lunch with a Marine and a couple other people yesterday, and we were talking about phones, and I said, hey, I remember the first phone that we had. It was a 4-party line where four families were on the same line, and I remember we got upgraded. We didn't know the word upgrade then, but we got upgraded to a 2-party line. So when you picked up the phone, you had a 50% better chance somebody else wasn't talking on it.
Exactly. But you still had to worry about the operator who switched you over, because she was sitting there listening in, and your business was going to be out in the town.
And the thing of it is, you could pick up the phone and hold your hand over the mouthpiece, and you could listen to what everybody else was talking about.
Oh, I know. It was crazy. I remember that when I was younger, having the party line system. That was
but
I kind of missed that.
We all survived pretty well, didn't we?
Yeah, and we survived real well. We didn't have to have phones in our pocket all the time like we do now. We don't have apps to tell us when to eat and go to the bathroom and call our buddies. And we're under 24-hour constant communication, surveillance, and connection, which is insane. If I shut my phone off, people actually get upset at me. I've known for years. I'm like, no, leave me be. It's time I got to get away from it. But I'm like everybody else, in business and operating, and I'm connected. So, unfortunately, I'm not exactly the answer.
We haven't talked about yet is health, and we haven't talked about. They're now trying to say we're going to investigate. Within a few years, we'll have an answer as to where COVID-19 came from, because we don't really know where it came from, and it looks to me like it's pretty obvious it came from China, and it's pretty obvious that the flu epidemic of 1918 also came from China. But we're making sure we're not talking about any of those things, because that's history, and we don't want anybody to know anything about history in this country anymore.
Exactly. For the longest time, I was getting into the COVID-19 discussion, and it got so convoluted. You couldn't tell who was telling you the truth or lying to you. And I got so mad. And I finally, in fact, I did it on Rich's show, Moving It Right, one Tuesday. I blew up. I said, that's it. I stopped. I'm tired of the COVID-19 crap. Okay. I haven't caught it. I don't know anybody, maybe one person that had symptoms of it. Okay. I've known several people that took the test and they couldn't make their mind up whether the test was positive or negative or positive or negative, negative, positive. They didn't know. So to me, it's another ploy, another BS operation is going on for them to try to make control of the country. Now, do I believe people actually get it and suffer severe consequences from it? Yes. But it's not as prolific and insane as the media. Here we go again with our media, and our politicians are driving it to be. Now, all of a sudden, we hear from New York, from Cuomo, the fine individual up there as their governor, along with the idiot de Blasio. They suddenly find out we've got 20,000 additional nursing home deaths in New York that they didn't know about. How long did it take them to modify those documents and death certificates to get that additional 20,000 from COVID-19? And I've seen documented proof where a lot of these deaths that they're saying are COVID-19 are not. They had the virus there, but that's not what caused them. When you show me a gunshot victim and you tell me on his death certificate that he died from COVID-19, I'm going to call you a liar. Same with a motorcycle accident, somebody who has a heart attack. It's crazy what I've seen in honest documentation that is just.
But the hospitals get bonuses if they report a COVID-19 death.
And see, I don't agree with the incentives like that.
So everybody's making money off of this, except the people who are getting laid off from their jobs or trying to work as a waitress or whatever. They can open up. I actually went to see a movie yesterday, and there's only two of us in the entire audience in there, in the entire room where they showed the movie. They just opened it up, and I thought, I'm going to go and I'm going to support them. It's a local theater here in Florida where I live, and it's just it was just great. And I just sat there, and there was only one other guy in there. I don't know how they made it, but at least I feel like I had to do something.
Exactly. All right, well, we got about 3 minutes left here, and I'm going to get into my closing end here. This country is one of the greatest countries in the world. I have been all over the world, just as I know you have too, Bill. I've even been to a couple of countries, which I imagine you probably have too, that no longer exist because their governmental basis was so shaky and it was just overrun by somebody else. So I encourage and I push people to educate themselves about the history of our country and how things are going on here. You can't have something just because somebody gave it to you. You got to work for it and you've got to earn it. We've had forefathers that worked hard and earned our country's position, and our rights and our freedoms have been earned by the men and women that put their lives on the line and have lost their lives, have lost their fortunes, lost their homes. People talk about the things that we've done in our past. Well, let's learn from those things we did in the past. If you got a problem with the Civil War, open your mind up, open your eyes up, and read what actually happened. Don't assume, don't believe the rabble-rousers or the shit-stirrers. Educate yourself. Don't be the lemming over the cliff. Don't be the sheep following the single leader and go off to the side. Educate yourself. Be smart. Learn your Constitution, learn your amendments, learn the Bill of Rights, buy things like Bill Muckler's book and educate yourself there. Get you a copy of the Federalist Papers and get you a copy of the Constitution. They're out there. You can get them for free. If you can't find one, write me at vfamm2020@gmail.com. I'll send you a copy of the Constitution. Won't charge you anything. I won't even charge you postage. Just write me and let me know where you're at, and I'll get you a copy of the Constitution. I'll send it to you with the Bill of Rights and everything in it so you can read it and educate yourself. Write to Bill, at his website, www.2020americasbook.com. Order his book. I imagine you've got a contact point on there for hearing from you. So there's people out there that will help you and educate you. We can get past this socialism. We can get past all this extremism we've got going on in our country. So from View for the Military Mind and Valkyrie Productions, Bill, I want to thank you very, very much for being here with me. It's been educational. I look forward to getting your books and reading those. You got anything else before we cut out?
Terry, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about America, and I hope that all of our veterans are safe and well, and things are going to get better because we're going to make them better.
There you go, Bill. I think, and I know they will, as long as I have patriots and friends like you out there. I know things are going to get better for us. For my brothers and my sisters out there, please be careful, be safe, keep your head down, and everybody keep our troops and our first responders in your mind and in your prayers and your thoughts every day. Reach out and shake the hand of a law enforcement officer. Thank a firefighter for what the little things that he does. Thank an EMT. This is Terry Mills, your host of View from Military Mind, saying good day, have a fine weekend, and God bless America.